President Bola Tinubu receives briefing on possible bilateral cooperation with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Be assured of petroleum products availability across the country. Minister of State, Petroleum Resources promises.
Ministry of Women Affairs puts smiles on faces of vulnerable women as nationwide distribution of food items commences.
And a good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall examine 2024 in review with special focus on the economy.
The backbone of any country's developmental aspiration is largely hinged on its economic prosperity. For Nigeria, 2024 has been quite eventful, with uncertainties, surprises, and a mixed grill of sort, from the economy growing 3.46% year-on-year in the third quarter of 2024, arguably quicker than in the first two quarters of the year, with 3.19% in the second quarter and 2.98% in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely, Jume. But rather than focus on figures, let's take a critical look at some biting economic issues of inflation, currency instability, and high cost of living, consequently impacting businesses and households, which was further compounded by unreliable power supply.
Indeed, most Nigerians will say, I don't want to hear the figures, I want to see what's going to put food on my table. And this year, the power sector dimmed the lights of some businesses, with the power grid collapsing 12 times this year alone.
Did you say dim the light? I think it's completely shut the light out.
Yeah,
well, the Naira didn't escape the brunt either, as economic analysts even affirmed. The Naira could be considered one of the worst performing currencies in sub-Saharan Africa this year. Now, a report by the World Bank says as of August 2024, the Naira depreciated by 43% this year. And of course, it still remains that way till date, making it one of the weakest currencies in the region alongside Sudanese pound and Ethiopian birr.
And experts attribute the Naira decline to some factors, including demand and delays in foreign exchange disbursements. This, despite government's effort at stabilizing the Naira in June 2023. More than a year ago.
Honestly, this worsened inflationary trend, especially for importation. As of December 26, 2024, a dollar stood at 1,595 Naira. In November 2024, the inflation rate rose to a soaring 30-year high of 34.6%. These figures are really depressing.
And unfortunately, the fuel cost complicated the nation's inflationary position, with pressure on manufacturers of goods and services. They've had some real knocks on the head. 2024, actually.
Well, perhaps not tales of woes alone, as the services sector recorded the largest with about 50% of total GDP. Now, this follows with agriculture at 23%, while petroleum and natural gas contribute only 11% of the total GDP. As the curtains fall on the year 2024, experts agree Nigerians are keeping hope alive for 2025. You know what to say? Once you're alive, there is hope.
There's hope.
Okay. So on Good Morning Nigeria this morning, we'll focus on the review of the economy sector in the year 2024 and consider projections for 2025. I'm Henry John. This is our outlook on the program today. Thank you for joining us.
And I am Jumbo Yusuf. A whole lot to dissect today on the program here, considering the significant economic reforms which have continued to deepen with increased fiscal, monetary and sectorial policy actions and have unexpectedly weighed on interest rates. Well, Chukwudi Okolukbaja will be here today for the newspaper review, but that will be after the news. Our newscaster this morning is Comfort Ahmadu. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Jumai and Yanri. Now, President Bola Tinubu has received a briefing from a Nigerian delegation who recently visited the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for more bilateral cooperation and collaboration. Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, recently led a delegation which included his counterpart for Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, and other members of the Presidential Economic Coordination Council, to follow up on the economic diplomacy between the two countries.
Across the various opportunities that are there for foreign direct investment, for trade partnerships, and for even financial investments.
So all our engagements with Saudi officials demonstrated that confidence, and that we are confident they will investments follow.
On field, the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil, Senator Henekin Lopobiri, wants Nigerians to appreciate the deregulation of the petroleum downstream, which he said has ultimately resulted in availability of petroleum products across the country.
I've been going from one filling station to the other to ensure that, the price they are selling is none of our business. You can see the price disparity. Some filling stations are selling 1,050 naira. NNPC, mega filling station is selling for 999. Others are selling for 1,200. That is the real essence of deregulation. And I've always contended that the price will find its level. What we need to do is to ensure that products are available, for the benefit of Nigerians.
The Federal Ministry of Women Affairs has flagged off nationwide distribution of food items to the vulnerable women and families to enable them have food in the spirit of the season.
And I hope that this little intervention will support many more families to put food on the table. All the groups, they are registered with us, as many as possible. This will be done all across the country. More people that will be supporting us so that we can be able to kind of double up effort to ensure that we address the global challenges around food security.
And elsewhere, the Nigerian Television Authority and other federal government-owned broadcast outfits are receiving federal government adequate attention to maintain their leading role in broadcast ecosystem. The Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, Saliu Abdul Hamid Dembo, said these in Kaduna at a reunion of former staff of NTA Kaduna. Former Director General of the NTA, Mohammed Ibrahim, chaired the occasion.
I thank the President for considering the need to finance the rehabilitation, also the equipping of our stations across the country, and equally to thank the Honourable Minister for being there for us. It's an issue that is very, very important, and this is a very big achievement under this present administration.
A former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, has died at the age of 100. The 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, was surrounded by his family at his home in Plains, Georgia. In his final moments, the Carter Center said in a statement Sunday, tributes and encomiums are pouring in. As President Joe Biden says, Carter stands as a model of what it means to live a life of meaning and purpose. Carter was a peanut farmer and U.S. Navy lieutenant before going into politics, eventually serving one term as governor of Georgia and as president of the United States from 1977 to 1981. He was the only former U.S. president to reach 100 years old. And that's the news for now. Good morning. Our direct continues with Yenri and Jume after the commercial break.
As this year draws to a close, we would like to express our sincere gratitude for your continued support. From breaking news to heartwarming stories, we are committed to bringing you credible content and delivering captivating programs that keep you glued to your screens. Our team is committed to providing exceptional service to delight our clients. We say thank you to those who have supported us through the year, from government agencies to corporate clients, political parties, religious bodies, and, most importantly, our viewers. As we welcome the new year, we look ahead with a promise to bring you the best in broadcasting as we continue this journey with you. Season's greetings from all of us at NTA.
My champs, they use energy at school.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them the new and improved Milo at breakfast.
It has nutrients that support energy release.
Milo! Our food, our health, our tomato paste. There is no tomato paste, the taste of my house. There is no tomato paste, yeah. Magical tomato pesto, Tiwani. 100% natural tomato. Namunde, alelelelelele, oh, alelele, oh, ale. There is no tomato paste, the taste of Nigeria.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
Dear Santa, I have been a very good boy. Please, can I have a special breakfast for Christmas? And also, I want to put a smile on my mommy's face. It's Big Santa! Thank you, Big Santa.
Enjoy Christmas at its peak.
Come and see the cool sales in here. Everything's on discount.
Yeah, I saw it already. But you know what? I've been thinking we should focus more on making things than just buying stuff.
What? You mean we shouldn't go for these awesome...
No. Hear me out, Nkechi. We are always chasing after new toys, upgrading gadgets, and buying things we don't really need. But what if we use that money to create something special?
Like what?
Anything! Instead of getting another fancy pair of shoes, we could start our own cool business together.
You mean we should become entrepreneurs?
Exactly! We could use our smart thinking to make something awesome for people. We might even make a big difference in our neighborhood.
You know what? You're right. We can learn a lot about money too.
Awesome! Let's be the heroes of our own story. Together, we can make a big change and break free from just buying stuff all the time.
One right action can make a big difference, right?
Niger's allegation of Nigeria's co-sponsoring with France to destabilize the country. Imagination or real? Find out the true perspectives from informed minds and experts on NTA Tuesday Live, coming up on the 31st December 2024. NTA Tuesday Live, every week at 10:30 p.m. It promises to be inclusive and educative. Join us.
Up next is newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okolo-Baja is seated. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
How are
to see
you, Jumai?
How was your weekend?
Lovely. Yeah, Ray.
Chukudi, good to see you on the last Monday of 2024. How are you doing?
So glad we made it. See how far we've come.
My baby.
I hope you give up singing in 2025.
Baby inside, though.
I hope you give up singing in 2025.
You know, do you know that 31st, 2 days from now, I have one very mischievous
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have one mischievous cousin. He'll come to your house tomorrow and tell you, my friend, I'm sorry, I won't be able to see you again till next year. You will go talk and you will say next year, but 10 decades from now.
Yeah. You know,
all right.
It's a good thing the year is rounding up on a good note. Now let's go to the papers. I have the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And above the masthead of the Vanguard newspaper, competition between Dangote and NNPC reason for petrol price drop. That's coming from Ikman. On page 5, global grief as 179 die in South Korea's worst plane crash. With rider Azerbaijan asks Russia to admit shooting at plane before crash. Find the details on page 6 and 26. Sheyi Tinubu reviewing Guard of Honor, gross violation of military tradition. That's coming from former presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, and Bode George. And just below the masthead, Naira slide threatens 2025 fiscal plan as CBN forex policy flops. Budget rose 74% nominally, but shrunk 23% in real value. Want to know all about it? You go to page 4. And at the side piece of the picture story, police hunters rescue 13 wedding guests after gun duel. You find the details on page 6. No ulterior motive in Nigeria's relationship with France. That's coming from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tugar. You find the details on page 26. Wike to Odili, I brought you back to life politically. Find details on page 5. At the bottom plate of the Vanguard newspaper, Budget 2025, experts hail FG for allocating 353.77 billion to foreign affairs. Details on page 8. Army destroys 20 illegal refining sites, arrests 8, recovers 90,000 liters of stolen products. Details on page 8. CAF axe falls on Libya again. What did they do this time around? You have to go to page 31 in the sports segment to find out. And the picture story you see there, Managing Director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Dr. Samuel Okugu, visited President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at his Lagos residence weekend to facilitate with him as part of the Christmas festivities.
All right, let's see what the Guardian is offering this morning. The Guardian leads with states spend more than earned to further rely on FARC income. That's on page 6 of the Guardian. Different pictures right here on the front page of the Guardian this morning. But let's see what some of the headlines have. Many federal roads in poor conditions at Yortide despite Umahi's pledges. Details of that on page 5. And this is coming from Lagos. Lagos churches, mosques, nightclubs to get noise permits. That's on page 6. Below that, 2027, Alia Akume rift may harm APC's chances, North Central Forum wants. All right, politics 2027 already in sight. Away from that, Wike replies, Odili accuses ex-governor of sycophancy. Below that, Atiku faults full military honors accorded Tinubu's son. Page 3 has all the details. You want to find out what's going on. That Serap tasked Tinubu on assets declaration in presidency and National Assembly. And of course, the Naira is in the news. between CBN's regulatory pushback and thriving mint market. All right, that's on page 4 of The Guardian. But let's move away from The Guardian quickly now and see what the New Telegraph has today. The New Telegraph leads with politics, and the kicker is year of intriguing politics. How Rivers crisis, hardship protest, cabinet reshuffle, others shaped Nigeria's polity in 2024. All of that on pages 9, 10, and 11 of the New Telegraph. Above that, just below the masthead, 2025 budget repos over 9.4 billion naira, 344 billion naira presidency, National Assembly allocations. That's on pages 14 and 16. And of course, NAFDAC is here, and the agency says they destroyed over 120 billion naira worth of goods in 6 months. Noise pollution. Lagos mandates permits for nightclubs, worship centers. That happens to be on all the papers this morning. FG budgeted 500 billion naira for Northwest Development Commission's takeoff, says Barao, and that's on page 4. Away from that, let's see some other headlines here. Benue Christmas tragedy. Federal government approves border patrol in the area. And one quick headline here. ABUTH begins kidney transplants in 2025. That's a good one. And let's just see this one. Of course, the story on the South Korean plane crash has been read by Jumei from the other paper. A very sad one, 179 dead. And finally, on the red strip, at the bottom of the New Telegraph this morning, we have large meals after 5 p.m. can contribute to type 2 diabetes risk. That's on page 26. Chukudi.
The kidney transplant, it's a very big step forward in terms of clinical achievement. But even more important is whether people can afford the price of the kidney to transplant. The other time we're talking about dialysis needing to be free for end-stage treatment of renal problems. This is very important.
Well, for kidney, families could donate, so it's not like they have to pay all the time for it.
Yeah.
If you have a family...
75% of the time...
You buy it.
You buy it.
That's the point.
75% of the time.
When it comes to health, there are certain things that are not within the reach of the ordinary people. Yes. Then you only live as a function of how much you have in your pocket, how deep your pockets are. That's not how it should be. We wish them luck. Let's say thank God for the clinical, achievement. 80% of end income for 21 states came from Federal Account Allocation Committee. That's the FAAC. Not very good.
Not very good.
Because what it means is that if the federal government does not share money, you're not going to live. You won't be able to serve your people. The IGR is a very important tool of development. But Nigerians will tell you, where is the internally generated revenue going to come from? Who is going to pay it when we can't afford even money for our food? So a lot of balancing needs to be done.
It needs to be done. There's a place where there's a place I buy breakfast in the morning at times when I close. And that day I went, one revenue collector came, left, another one came, left, the third one came, the woman just lost it. She went crazy. And what's your problem? How can you just keep collecting money? How much am I earning?
Many of them are
fake. And I told her that, yes, whenever they come, ask them for their ID card.
Exactly. They are...
Always ask for their ID card. Don't just give them money.
Exactly. So Nigerians should begin to insist on many things.
So these things happens even in states. And, we've talked about this here most times, about states not doing enough to support the federal government.
We're very sensitive people when it comes to religion.
That's why the tax reform is a wake-up call, which they are resisting. Because they know they'll have to work hard.
Exactly.
Yes. And they don't want that.
The African man, I keep on talking, it's not a Nigerian thing only.
No.
The reason Africa does not quite show you pacey development is that old habits die hard.
It does.
Look at fuel prices. The government said that when it is liberalized and when the market is free, the prices are determined by market forces, you would have a situation where you find that this filling station is selling fuel 20 naira or 40 naira higher than the filling station that is just 8 poles ahead.
Yes.
They are now in, come and buy my own, come and buy my own. So these things really work. People say that economic index does not work in Nigeria. Do not work in Nigeria. That's not true.
And I wonder why people are
Look at what is happening.
Because we've had the tax system from history.
Exactly.
Where kingdoms pay tribute to other bigger kingdoms. It's all tax.
Do people
so what is new here?
Understand it?
What is new?
I am happy. They say that businesses that earn less than, have a turnover of less than 50 million or thereabout are not going to pay tax. Yes. I think that's where my business is at the moment. So, let people at least...
You're what, 50 million?
Do I allow small boys will lay me for road with my canopy? The point is, try to understand what is being said before you begin to agitate and say. Many people do not understand what is being said. But that's not to say that the government is...
well, to balance that, maybe you say...
Maybe
you would also say whatever is being said should be said as plainly as possible so that it's understood.
It's understood.
The messaging matters. The additional mathematics woman.
Yes.
You know, Lagos churches, mosques, nightclubs to get noise permits. I always talk about Lagos leading the way. Now, here's the one that touches raw nerves in Nigeria. Religion. Those blaring loudspeakers, they do not work like that in London. My friend said, when you sing in church or mosque in the UK, the sound does not come outside. It's built to go inside. This is going to be a very, very tough fight by government.
And in Abuja
because we have our religious sentiments.
Those of us we say don't sleep because of the noise from the clubs in the night and the bikers.
A lady told me, because I'm one of those who are against it, whether it's by Christians, whether it's by Muslims, Nigerians can have their sentiments. Those things won't grow us if we begin to dwell on sentiments. So a lady told me in my car, he said, Oga, you're one of the people who speak up about this. The other time somebody was holding a video, it was not even that he was disturbing my sleep. My 5-day-old baby could not sleep.
Yes.
That was a sin being committed against another human being. Look, let us wake up and love our neighbors as ourselves and stop blackmailing people with religion so we can grow.
Jimmy Carter is dead at 100 years.
Jimmy Carter, his wife Rosalind went first.
Yes, she did.
Jimmy Carter was like a dove. There was something about that man. You saw a God person in an American president with awesome powers. May his soul rest in perfect peace.
Amen.
May his soul rest in perfect peace.
And may the souls of those who died in the plane crash over the week.
2 of them are actually the Azerbaijan, the Azari flight. Moscow has not quite said they shut it down, but they said Ukrainian drones were in the air, blah, blah, blah. You know,
this is the second time
Azaris have said
it's
actually, surface to surface missile that took it down. Those bullet holes. But the rather pathetic one, 179 dead and only 2 people walked free. The South Korean airline. Jeju airline.
The crew.
Now, that one brought tears to my eyes.
Their souls rest.
It was just 2 flight attendants that walked free from that crash.
All right, many thanks, Chukudi.
The undercarriage would not come down. Thank you, ladies.
We have to let you go.
I am bouncing back to sector. I'm happy by His grace we are going to make 2025.
Of course, but the next Monday we'll be seeing you. It will be 2025. Hope to see you tomorrow, by the way.
Bye-bye, ladies.
Enjoy. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today. Stay with us.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand, we make solutions, ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than destination. We are unity. We know they carry love. We are Nigeria. Together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Dear Santa, I have been a very good boy. Please, can I have a special breakfast for Christmas? And also, I want to put a smile on my mommy's face. It's Big Santa! Thank you, Big Santa.
Enjoy Christmas at its peak.
I think Amaka should just move out of the house. Yes.
No. Standing out of the house is not the right thing to do.
Oh, there you go again with your sentimental family stuff.
Baby, if our aim is to stop this affair, it is best achieved under our roof.
You do something terrible and you'll be acting innocent.
What are you going on about?
Don't ask me that question again. You couldn't even control yourself in the presence of our visitors.
What are you accusing me of, woman?
My son, I don't know how serious you are with my daughter. But there's something that needs to be done urgently before you move any further.
Anything, just anything, just say it. I'm ready to do anything.
There is a spell that needs to be removed.
A spell?
Family forever. The story of our lives.
My champs, they use energy at school.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them the new and improved Milo at breakfast.
It has nutrients, support, energy release.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation, to push this conversation, here's a background report put together by Timothy Yusuf.
Nigeria's economy in 2024 has been shaped by various factors, including global economic trends and domestic policy reforms by the present administration. For economic growth, experts say the country's GDP growth rate showed promise with a 2.98% growth rate in the first quarter of 2024, surpassing the performance of any quarter in 2023, except fourth quarter of the same year, 2023. The growth is expected to continue, with projections suggesting a 3.0% to 3.1% growth rate for the year. Another factor is inflation and interest rates, which analysts believe remains a concern, with rates reaching a record high of 34.19% in June 2024. Efforts were, however, in place at various times to combat these. The Central Bank of Nigeria, for instance, raised the policy rate. While this is expected to help curb inflation, it may also limit economic growth. For reforms and policy changes with ultimate aim to curbing unemployment, among others, experts explained that the Nigerian government has implemented various reforms aimed at driving economic growth and stability. These include the removal of fuel subsidy, exchange rate unification, and increased fiscal discipline. While these reforms have yielded some positive results, such as increased government revenues and exports, they have also led to pressure points like naira depreciation and rising inflation. In all, despite the challenges, Nigeria's economy is generally expected to continue growing even to the last day in 2024, driven by sustained policy reforms and improved oil production. While many believe that Nigeria's economy in 2024 is characterized by a mix of challenges and opportunities, government's reforms have shown promise and that the country must navigate ongoing economic pressures to achieve sustainable growth. More insight on Good Morning Nigeria today.
All right, many thanks, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Now joining us for the conversation, we have Professor Uche Owaleke. He is Professor of Capital Market, Nasarawa State University, and President, Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us, Prof.
Thanks so much, Lenre. Compliments of the season.
Same to you. Also with us for the conversation is Yushwal Aliyu, an economist. It's a pleasure to have you again.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you.
And of course, joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Dr. Paul Alaje, Chief Economist and Partner, SPM Professionals. It's nice to have you join us. Compliments of the season.
Thank you so very much for having us. A beautiful morning to you. Compliment of the season and Happy New Year in advance.
Advance, gentlemen. We've talked about this throughout the year. When inflation rises, drafts, and the forex exchange and all. We've been talking about Professor Owaleke. Let's begin with you. Let's have your assessment of the Nigeria's economic landscape and the key drivers of Nigeria's GDP growth in 2024. We've had some big knocks, in 2024, and we're still reeling from it.
Oh yes, I like that word, reeling from it.
Yes.
The fact remains that the twin reforms we saw in 2023, notably the fuel subsidy removal and the unification of exchange rates, the impact of these reforms, one can say, has continued to linger. So that's why I said I like the word, reeling. So we are still reeling from the impact of those reforms. And the reality is that they are not going to disappear overnight. Recall that as soon as that happened, inflation went up, and the naira, of course, went down. So it is the ripple effect, that we also saw in 2024. In 2024, I recall January inflation rate was at around 29%, 29.9%. Today, inflation is at 34.6%. That's the latest by the National Bureau of Statistics. If you also take the exchange rates in January, I think opened around official 1,350. Today, official, we are talking about 1,550. And then you can also, say generally that 2024 was indeed, a difficult year for many Nigerians, and that's as a result of, as I said earlier on, the lingering impact of those reforms. But of course, we also had the if you like, the sunny side of 2024, and that's and that goes to show that we've had those. If you like, the immediate immediate impact of the reforms, but there is a promise, or there is, a ray of hope that with time they will ease off, and one, is beginning to see those signs, beginning with even improvement in the GDP numbers. GDP, you can see steady growth in GDP. First quarter 2.98%, second quarter 3.19%, third quarter 3.46%. So we've had steady growth in GDP over the 3 quarters we have that has been reported. And you can also look at the unemployment rate. Well, again, let's also use the numbers by the National Bureau of Statistics. Unemployment rate, we were told, dropped from 5.3 in quarter 1 to 4.3 in quarter 2. So that's one positive side. Even though some people say there are people that still are not too comfortable with the new methodology that the MBS is using for the unemployment. But that's the figure we have. Drop in unemployment rate, increase in GDP, increase in is also important. I mention it. The central bank has been able to also, if you like, grow reserves, external reserves. So we have witnessed accretion to external reserves. External reserves at the beginning of January 2024 was around $33 billion. And we also know that much of that, as at that time, was encumbered. But today, we hear external reserves in excess of $40 billion, enough to finance 9 months of imports. And when you look at goods alone, 17 months of goods. So to that extent, one can say yes, the central bank has been able to do that. And one other thing we've also noticed is in terms of one of the triggers of money supply, central bank has also been able to take care of that. Again, of course, with the cooperation of the fiscal side, and that's talking about the ways and means. So today, ways and means financing is no longer the issue. So on balance, yes, I started by saying it was a difficult year. It's still, 2024. Many Nigerians will tell you was a difficult one, but there are signs that with time, as we go into 2025, we're going to be beginning to see some improvements, no doubt. And I can't end this opening without mentioning the what the central bank has also done in terms of monetary policy. We saw an aggressive monetary policy stance by the central bank beginning in February. Remember, in February, central bank jacked up the monetary policy rate by as much as 400%. The following month, March, they took it up again by 200%. So between February and now, and November, central bank jacked up monetary policy rate by 875 basis points. So that's quite, an aggressive stance. And that's also, if you now look at the fact that they also increased the cash reserve requirements, to 50%, that also tells you that it was an aggressive stance. And that had, also this effect, particularly on the manufacturing sector. Today, the manufacturing sector is also, if you like, groaning from such, rate hikes, such that we hear today that the manufacturing sector is carrying accumulated inventory, unsold inventory of 1.2 billion naira. Okay, we also saw very high rate of increase in the cost of power, particularly for the manufacturing sector. So manufacturing sector hasn't really found it easy, and that is also reflected in the GDP number for manufacturing. If you notice, the manufacturing GDP has been declining from quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. In quarter 3, manufacturing GDP declined to 0.9%. Agri sector too, has also not been doing too well, all right, in 2024. But as I said, there is hope. Look, that's in the nearest future, some of these things, will ease off. Why I'm saying that is because the central bank, if you look at the pace of the tightening, it has tended to decrease. The last one we saw was just 0.25%, suggesting that by next year, central bank may completely pause rate hikes, and we also begin to see maybe inflation moderating in 2025, which is why the budget, for example, is basing its assuming that inflation will come in next year on the average at 15%, below what we targeted in 2024. So overall, a difficult year, but there is sign that things will improve going forward.
Nigerians are hopeful.
Right.
Should be hopeful.
All right. Of course, I would ask you much later if you actually think that the projection that the inflation rate will drop to 15%, if you see that happening, but that will be much later. But let's get to Dr. Paul Alaje now. Listening to Professor Waleke, all through he said it was a difficult year. I want to know if you agree that it was a difficult year, and tell us if there were challenges, as regards the economy in 2024.
Thank you so much for having me once again. 2024 was indeed a difficult year, and the difficulty with things that have been emphasized by different headquarters, by different economists, even though some are projected that the impact of the two policies will not linger this long. But having read about economic history and read about countries that do not have the necessary background or what we call the assumptions before the policies were made, some of them even had the impact for as long as 10 to 15 years. Recall that in 2024, this year, the World Bank chief had mentioned that this policy, for us to have the full positive impact that we want, it might take up to 10 to 15 years. If we sustain the policy, the hope that we aspire, the hope we want to get will certainly come. So 2024, starting with the GDP growth rate, we have seen an improvement in GDP from what it was last year to this year. But it's important for me to also say that Nigeria's GDP has now reduced significantly. Now, it does not make sense if we are saying that GDP rate has grown, but GDP has reduced. Yes, but that's the truth. The GDP numbers has reduced to arguably $199 billion. You know why I use the word dollars? Because the president and indeed the central bank governor hopes to grow this economy in 10 years to $1 trillion economy. When you're comparing countries, you will no longer compare with their local currency, except and unless they're a global economy. For Nigeria, they're a global currency. For Nigeria to compete with the rest of the world, which is the real aspiration, we must compete with the rest of the world and understand that we are here for economic competition and to complement those who are buying from us or perhaps the rest of Africa. So it's a bit of worry that in 2024, our GDP reduced by half. Why? Because of our policy of flotation. Some persons will call it right-sizing. So policy, according to the World Bank, took 10 million people as of October into poverty only in 2024. But what are the good things about this policy? A lot. First, you saw revenues that is shared at FAC. More states have more revenue. You see local government have revenue. And indeed, the federal government also have more revenue. So this policy has put revenue on the table. The worry here is that most of those revenue are not trickling down to our people. They are not trickling down to roads enough. They are not trickling down to rail enough. They are not trickling down to infrastructure enough. And what is the impact of this humongous increase in share? Two things. First of all, it's partly responsible for inflation. It's partly responsible.
Like the connection,
Dr. Paul there, but I believe if the Zoom gets better, he'll be back. Let's bring in Yushau Aliu into this conversation. Both Doctor and Prof are optimistic that the economy will get better by 2025. And, talking about the growth, Nigerians will say it is more heard than seen. All they want to do is see food on their table. The numbers, do they really matter to Nigerians?
Yes, it matters because elementarily, when an income of a household increases, even the expenditure has not increased, there is hope and expectation that that same income will translate to welfare of the family. Why figures are important in looking at an aggregate economy. Dr. Paul Alaje has touched an area that is most significant in achieving the target. One is that the available resources, the IGR structure, and probably the spending aspect. Emphasis on an economy can be understood looking at the parameters. But the parameters alone cannot explain the prosperity context of that economy for a period of time. It is important when we are looking at 2024, first of all, to understand that it was a difficult year. It was a year that there was series of industrial unrest. It's a year also that is challenged even at the end with a new tax reform that has generated a lot of tension. But one thing that remains good is that state government have tested what is called prosperity as far as revenue sharing is concerned. To translating that to investment for social structure requires them to understand that the increase of resources, probably from the federal angle or from the Nigerian structure, is not going to be complete without understanding why they must limit deficit in the appropriations. For local government, it must be zero deficit budgeting system. The 2024, most of the budgets are in deficit. For the federal government, it was a deficit of 9.7 trillion at the beginning. So the borrowing aspect, as allowed by law under fiscal responsibility, was a very challenging in 2024 because we choose to borrow and also not translating because of conditions that the economy finds itself. Like I said, it was a turbulent year with an industrial unrest. It's a turbulent year for many households. You know, once households are deficient in the market structure, it affects the growth of the GDP. And that is why today you find out that if the figures increases for the government, the revenue sharing increases. But to translate that to the prosperity is what we need to have a very formal system of putting investment where it is necessary.
All right. Many thanks, Usual Aliyu, for your opening thoughts there. I'd like to get back to Professor Waleke. And, I'm just thinking, as we go forward in this conversation, when you spoke earlier, you talked about unemployment rates getting better. And Dr. Alaje, when he spoke, talked about 10 million Nigerians went into poverty. So I'm trying to relate that. If the employment rate improved, then 10 million people became poorer. I mean, just speak about this. Usually you says the numbers are good. We need the figures. But like Jume said, for the average Nigerian, it's about the reality. How many can still afford, to put food on their tables? How many can still afford to send their kids to school and none of that? So speak to us about what the reality was. You have spoken about what the NBS said, what the numbers say, but tell us, what was the reality for the Nigerian in 2024?
Okay, yes, thank you, Lanre. It's important I also, mention the numbers, because that is what we have. That's what is before us. When I was talking about the inflation number, I cited the NBS. When I talked about the GDP, I cited the NBS. So it made sense that if I was also citing unemployment, I should also refer to NBS. That's why I refer to NBS. That according to NBS, unemployment rate dropped from 5.3 in quarter 1 to 4.3 in quarter 2. But I also added the caveat, if you noticed, and I said that people are still, there are people that are still not in agreement with the methodology that the NBS is using to compute the unemployment rate. Remember, before this time, under the old methodology, unemployment rate was as high as 33%. Then when they changed to their new methodology, where they expanded the working age, band, working age band under the old system used to be 15 to 64 years. Okay, remember, unemployment is the percentage of the working age that is not employed. So the denominator was expanded. Instead of saying 15 to 64, they now say 15 to and above. So okay, and they also reduced what we used to have was, if you were not in employment for at least 20 hours in a week, you were unemployed. But again, they removed that. So when you expand the denominator, you tend to have something that is very, very low. Again, they said they did that because they wanted to conform with the International Labour, Organization's standards. But that's for the MBS. And as I said, a lot of people are not in agreement, including myself. I don't think that for us as a country, we should adopt methodologies that, don't actually reflect, the true situation that is on ground. Okay. Now, yes, I hear people talk about, yes, we say GDP numbers increased over the three quarters, up to the point where we now have 3.46%. But of course, Nigerians will tell you they can't feel it. Okay, this GDP you talk about is just a number. All right, people are still suffering. Majority of people are still suffering, and that is because I have always said it, and I want to emphasize it here too. It's because of the quality of the growth. It is time we began to pay attention on the quality of the GDP growth. So when you see that GDP has grown, or you say GDP, what is GDP? We say monetary value of goods and services produced in an economy, okay, over a period of time. Okay, so when you see GDP growing, it's important to disaggregate to say what are those factors, what are those major drivers of GDP growth. Okay, in the last 3 quarters, we have, for example, the first quarter oil sector was, I think, around 5 point something percent. In the second quarter, 10 point something. Then third quarter, it dropped again. GDP growth in Nigeria has been powered by the services sector. Okay, such that the real sectors of the economy, the productive sectors, the sectors that have a lot of potentials for job creation, like agriculture has not been doing well, unfortunately. The last numbers that NBS released, agriculture contributed 28% to GDP. Okay, so if you disaggregate according to sectors, agriculture is actually the highest contributor to GDP. And we know services as a whole contribute 50-something, but agriculture, that has agriculture has four subunits. Okay, you have production, you have fishery, you have livestock, you have forestry. Of course, the bulk of it is crop production, contributing 28% to GDP. So a sector that contributes 28% to GDP and employs maybe over 60% of the population should be given attention. It is because agriculture has been growing tepidly. The last GDP growth rate we saw was 1.14%. Agriculture. That is why today people are saying they can't feel the GDP growth you are saying, because what is powering it is services. It's the banking sector that is growing at by over 30%. Okay, if the banking sector is growing, for example, and there's a limit to how many people the banks can employ, it is not an employment elastic sector. So even when it is growing, okay, you don't find that reflecting in the lives of the ordinary Nigerian. And that's why today, it's the service sector that appears to be enjoying. The banks are declaring profits. Okay, the stock is doing well. Today, the stock market year-to-date return for the stock market is 36%. Okay, which is higher than inflation rate of 34.6%. So it's only in the services sector that you can afford to say, okay, this sector is doing well. But the manufacturing sector is being strangulating. I just told you the number 0.9. Facing accumulated, inventory, low capacity.
If the manufacturing sector is being strangulated, agriculture is not performing. Yes. What does that mean? Why is there hope for 2025?
Yeah, that's why I told you that the quality of growth is important. Okay, so going forward, the government should be focusing on the quality of, and let me also acknowledge that it would appear that this has been recognized. The president in his media chat, the media chat, if you watched it, kept talking about output, kept emphasizing output. That is what will actually as the magic. We need to grow output. Okay, and that was why I was happy when he talked about the things they are trying to do in the agri space, particularly mechanized agriculture. He talked about tractors that are 2,000 tractors that are going to come in from mechanized agriculture. So it is output that will, that's the game changer. Okay, so we need to grow output. As you are growing output, of course, you are creating jobs. All right. So for me, the attention should be on agric and manufacturing. And for manufacturing, again, we need to create an enabling environment. Okay, for this to enable environment. And what's that enabling environment? The key one is power.
Power.
Okay, energy. Let me say energy. And when you talk about energy, you're talking about not only electricity, but you're also talking about fuel. These two are very important. And that is also why I think that in the area of energy, okay, I also want to admit that in the area of petroleum, maybe we are beginning to see some improvements in petroleum. All right, if you look at the competition, would appear to be have started driving down, gradually the price of petroleum products. Competition between the Dangote refinery and NNPC, and we want to see more, more people come into that space. Competition should actually drive down, the price. So if we can deal with the energy sector, okay, bring down the cost of fuel, bring down the cost of electricity, okay, particularly for the manufacturing sector, okay, that is when you begin to see output, and that's when you begin to see, if I